Hello friends, we are working on lesson 4, transforming objects of the Classroom in a Book Adobe Illustrator CC 2013 version. I have already downloaded my files and I'm looking at the end file here in Illustrator. So, lesson overview, we're going to add, edit, rename, order artboards. We're going to navigate artboards, work with rulers, guides, move, scale, rotate objects using a couple different methods. We're going to position objects with precision. Say that 5 times fast. Position with measurement labels and use a free transform to distort an object. Awesome. So I have end open just so I can see what my goal is in this assignment. So I'm going to open up L4 Start. And we have one artboard, and then we have some objects on the outside of our artboards, which is totally cool. So, and as always, getting started tells us what to rename our file, and we want to rename it as cycle. We're on page 118 on step 6. And I'm going to do my first initial last name dash recycle. And I've already have a file, I'm just going to replace the file that I already have saved. Cool. So it wants us to kind of reset essentials. If your view looks like this, you're good. So we're going to work on adding artboards and modifying artboards. So the first video will be working on artboards. So if we go to a space tool, we can kind of grab our hand, and while I'm holding my space tool down, I can kind of use this to move around. Of course, I could always just pull it up in our tools panel. So I'm going to select, in our tools panel, we have a bunch of different tools we haven't explored yet. We're going to go to the artboard tool. Shift plus O is the keyboard shortcut. And we're going to kind of click and drag, kind of like how we've used with the shape tool, to create our first shape. Or we're creating an artboard actually. And we want to, it's going to have a measurement guide, and we want it to be about 9 width and 4 inch height. And the width to be 9 by 4. If you don't get it perfect, we can always adjust it later. We're going to go to the new artboard button, and this up here in our control panel, it's just going to duplicate the size. You see it's right there. And I'm just going to paste it there. Now our artboards weren't exactly the width, so if we use our artboard tool and we select, you can take that width from 4.01 to 4 in our artboard panel. So now they're the correct size, which is pretty cool, if I say so myself. And if I'm going to pull up my artboard panel, which is these 2 rectangles, and we have artboard 1, if I click on it, jump to 1, 2, 3. Also in here, we can click a new artboard, and we can have a total of 4, and it placed it there. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of resize some artboards. So artboard 4, which is there, and if I'm curious, I can always double click on my artboard panels. Another cool thing to make sure you know which artboard you're on. It'll say so in your control panel if you're on the artboards tool, but this number right here, and I can actually jump through my artboards through here, which is helpful when you have a bunch of artboards. So in our control panel for artboard 4, we're going to change the width to 9.5. and it's going to whiten it there so we can have exact measurements, and we can also kind of do a drag out. So we're going to drag artboard 4 down to 4.15. And as you see, our measurement tool lets us know the exact size. We'll do a command negative to zoom out, so we have artboard 4, which is a little larger than the rest. What we're going to do now is kind of rearrange some artboards. So we're going to go to artboard 1, and we're going to change the size of it. Now I can do this up here, or I can click on this artboard button in my artboard panel, and it pulls up these options. I'm going to take that preset to letter, just like the book says. We're on page 122, step 9. And over here we have some boxes, and we're going to keep that clicked in the corner for the reference point 0, 0. Click OK. And I'm just going to do a selection, and it's just resized this shape right there, which is pretty awesome. We're also going to set up some bleeds in our document setup. I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch, and remember, it changes all of them. And you can also go to edit artboards there to pull up some more artboard editing too. So there's different ways to reach the artboard edit. And what we're going to do now is arrange artboard 4 nested right under artboard 1. So I'm going to zoom out, command negative so I can see. Click on artboard 4, and I'm just going to drag it here where it nests, and you can see it wants to snap some guides together based on the smart guides, which is pretty helpful. Next thing we're going to do is rename some artboards. So if you double click here in our artboard panel, you can rename. Step 1 is going to be flyer. And renaming your artboard is helpful when you have a whole bunch of different artboards and you get confused, like 2 of the same size, they may look very similar, but you want one to be card front and card back like we were doing here. So artboard 2 is going to be card front. And artboard 3 will be card back. And lastly, the one will be envelope. And that's what we've renamed our artboards. And you can always kind of drag this list around to kind of reorder your artboards if you have a specific order you would like them. And it just changes them in the stack. So yeah, and next thing we're going to do, we finish artboards, we have a good understanding of them. If you have more questions, you can always go online and Google what are artboards in Illustrator, and there's some really awesome other YouTubes to help you. Next we're going to working with guides and rulers, because sometimes your client wants specific measurements where everything's located. We kind of talked about this before. I'm a big fan of rulers. To put them on everything that I work on. I like knowing measurements. So if your rulers are not indicated, and mine are kind of right here at the very top of my documents window, I'm going to go to View, Rulers. You can hide rulers or show them. I'm doing a Command R or Control R to show the rulers there too. And what we're going to do is we're going to play around with some guides. So we're going to go to Artboard 2. And I double click so it's kind of viewing, and I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to drag out from my ruler, and that gives me a guide. And these guides help us snap things to them when we're using smart guides. It also helps us know placements. So let's say my client wants the image in starting at 1 inch, and then next image following every other inch. So it helps us set up rulers and guides, especially if you're trying to do like a matrix or like a game board panel. It's really helpful. So as we see, we kind of pulled it out, and I'm going to double click this guide, and I'll know that it's selected once it reaches orange. Sometimes it doesn't want to work. Sometimes. Okay, mine is under lock guides. I've kind of right click, I'm just going to uncheck that. Now I can make those adjustments. And here I need to go in my transform panel. Depending on the resolution of your computer, it'd be right up there, or you can just click transform. I don't like working through there. I like just pulling up a transform panel there, and I'm going to probably just keep it open throughout our work today because we use it quite a bit. So we're going to actually set this up 1/4 of an inch right there. Now if yours didn't set up there, you may need to change your rulers. There's two types of rulers. There's artboard rulers and global rulers. And the textbook on page 125 does explain this pretty well. Artboard rulers set up the rulers based on each artboard you're going, and they zero out in the corner right there. Global rulers zero out after your first artboard. So whatever artboard won, it would zero there out for everything. And you can always kind of switch around. Right now we're in artboard rulers, so we can make those adjustments. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up another 1/4 inch guide on the right side of it. Now I can kind of go back and do it here, but sometimes you have a weird measurement. Like let's say your document is 9 3/4 and you need to have 1/8 of an inch, and it gets kind of fuzzy. You can always kind of reset where your rulers start. Now they default in the upper left hand corner, but we're going to change it to the upper right hand corner. So where the rulers meet in the corner, I'm going to click here, and to see my cursor changes to a crosshair. Now I'm going to drag in the corner, right where it says intersect. And that's where my ruler is going to start. I'm going to pull up a guide from my ruler on the other corner, place it to where I think it is, select, transform, and I'm going to, oh, awesome, I've already set it there. I'm going to actually put my transform in here. So I can always just pull my transform there. And I did that by pulling that tab and drilling it into here. I use the transform quite a bit. It's going to make a nice shortcut. So right now we see we have 2 rulers there. And now we want to lock our guides. Originally they were locked before, but we want to lock them. So we can go to View, Guides, Lock Guides. So now I don't accidentally move them over. They're set. And I'm going to actually reset my ruler so it's in the corner right there. And I just did that by dragging out in that corner again. So that was our YouTube for guides and artboards for specifically the first steps of this video. So the next video we're going to be working on page 127. We're going to do some scaling of objects and reflecting of objects and rotating objects for the next part. See you soon.